All right, cool. Hello, everyone. It's the Dawn of Van Life back with you. And this time, I'm not with a YouTuber, but I am with a fellow van lifer, Cora, who has been in one of my videos before and has also had a van tour done on the channel Galavan. I think I got that channel name right. Both my video with Cora and that video with Galavan will be linked in the description if you want to check either of those videos out. As you can see, like almost all the van lifers that I've been talking to, we're not in vans right now. But we're going to talk a little bit about van life, about the effects of COVID-19 on sort of being in the midst of a van life experience. And we're going to just talk a little bit about the thing, like I do on these things, my Vanlife Chat Sessions. So firstly, how are you doing, Cora?
I am doing pretty good. All told, I feel like I'm pretty lucky. I have a place to stay. I have a job. I mean, I'm still getting paid, which I'm very, very grateful for and very, very lucky to continue to have. So, all told, comparative to what it could be, I'm pretty good.
So
I'm a little lonely.
So luckily teaching, yes, will remain an essential profession. There may be some hits in the income stream, but at least it's a little more like guaranteed to at least kind of stick it out a bit. I, of course, am in the theater industry where people can't gather. There's no work.
So we could just go online. I'm on sabbatical right now, so I am not actually teaching. I do normally teach online, primarily online, or mostly online at least. So I could have gone online, but I'm full-time, I'm tenured, so I'm relatively safe with my economy. But yeah, I'm definitely one of the luckier ones.
All right. So before we get into like serious COVID-19 topics, let's go back a little bit, just give people a little information about how you got sort of into van life. And so like you said, you had a sabbatical coming up. You didn't know that this was going to hit your sabbatical, unfortunately. And so you were going to use that time to do some traveling by living out of a van. But in how many months have you been like a van dweller?
I know. So I don't know if you could even call me a van dweller at this point. So I left on my sabbatical in a van, my first van that you did the van tour on, my 87 Ford Econoline. And that was, I left May 28th of 2019. Okay. And so I was in that van sometimes because it kept breaking down.
I had 2 vans, and I was trying to figure out how many months it had been that you had gone through.
Right. Right. So I was in that van. Sometimes I say I was only sometimes in the van because it kept breaking down. And so I kept having to, get a rental car, and like it was ridiculous. And so that was until, gosh, it felt like years. But it was really only until like July, I guess.
Yeah.
And then in July, I decided to sell it because it was just not, it kept breaking down, and I was like not ever able to make any forward progress. And it was these really
screen change here. There we go. There it is. So yeah, that's the video I did with it's muted, but I'm gonna play it a little bit. That's the video I did with your original van, which you bought already built out.
Yes.
It had a pop top on it. It had solar. It basically had like a convertible bed. Like in the visual spectrum of the van, it was actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
But it was rifled with more problems than
medical issues. Yeah. And I mean, like I really respect people who can deal with that, but it was like just in terms of what I wanted to do, like in terms of keeping moving forward, it just like I kept having to stop and go to various mechanics all over the country. And then also it was doing this really scary thing where I would be on the freeway and it would turn itself off going like 65 miles per hour on the freeway. And that is like super terrifying when there's a giant big rig in back of you. And so I just was really afraid that I was going to die in this van if I, so I decided to sell it. I bought a newish, almost new Ford Transit in, I think it was, I want to say it was July. It all runs together at this point. And I converted it myself in Lansing. So then I've had that van since August. And I have put actually a total of something like 28,000 miles on my two vans combined. Yeah, so basically I bought a newish van and converted it in my friend's parking lot in August and in Lansing, Michigan. And so I actually have put a total of, I think it's something like 28,000 miles on my two vans since June of 2019. So I actually have been moving around quite a lot in those vans. But sorry, go ahead.
What's your new van? Like what type, model, etc.?
It's a Ford Transit. It's a low top roof. It's not a high or medium. And it's a 2018. Mm-hmm. So, and now it has 33,000 miles on it, I think.
Mm-hmm. So relatively new. You also got to like custom make the van.
Yeah.
So as far as like, I know when you got the older van, the thought was, it already had everything. Yeah. And it seemed like the right way to go to just get something that was already built out so you wouldn't have to go through those steps. And then ultimately, because of the mileage and the age and other problems, it ultimately led to more problems than it was worth. Yeah. Having this thing already built out. And it even had a pop top, but I remember us trying to put that pop top up and it was really heavy.
It was hard to do, yeah. And also it wasn't like, I started thinking about it and it wasn't very stealthy. I mean, it wasn't stealthy at all. And so really I couldn't have ever camped like stealth wise. And so I have since in my new van, I really wanted to make it as stealth as possible. So I have stealth camped in my new van. And that was the plan because of the financial hit I took on both vans, right? So the old van, I put quite a large amount of money into trying to get it back up to, what I needed it to be. And then selling it, I took another huge hit. So I took pretty big hits financially on that one. And, made a mistake. I will work it out. But the plan was to then full-time in my new stealth van when I go back to the Bay Area until this happened.
Until the world flipped. Well, while we're on the happy subjects before we get dark, I just pulled up a picture on Instagram of the roof vent fan. Can you see it? I know what I can see. I can't tell what you can see. All right, cool. So that was like the roof vent that you installed. This is the van from the back. And let me see if I can get this other picture up. I basically was on your Instagram, like, where can I find pictures? So let me see if I can change screens without crashing.
My Instagram is pretty boring.
Shoot. I want to pull up this picture just so people can see the van. But while I'm trying to pull that up, having had the chance to custom make your van and having gotten, even though it wasn't an RV, because a lot of times we compare like pre-built RVs to custom building vans, like, did you prefer having the ability to custom make your space, or do you still think, if the mechanical problems hadn't been there, you like the idea of did you really in the end like the experience of custom making your van more, or would you have liked not to have had to go through that experience? Like, what's your feelings on those two experiences?
Well, I mean, I think that it was very stressful to build my van, especially because I was by myself. I didn't have any help or anything like that, and I had a really short time frame that I had to finish it in. But but I will say that I preferred making it because now I know like everything is kind of how I want it to be. There are still some improvements that I plan to make before I bail from where I am currently staying. But I definitely was happy that I got to make things the way I wanted them to make. And also I had one of the problems I had with the van was that the person who had installed the solar kind of did a subpar job. He used too skinny or thin of wires. So like it wasn't getting enough power despite.
And this is a Medusa van.
Yeah. The old van. And so on one of my stops, I stopped in Austin and was staying with a very old friend of mine who I had actually built an apartment with in my 20s, who is an electrical engineer. And so we redid my entire solar system on Medusa van. And that was, while very frustrating, was a great experience to learn. And so then when I built my new van, Persephone, I was really confident in how to do the solar, which was really my biggest fear in the first van. So,
yeah. And I think like solar for me, because now I have my one little 100-watt panel and my little batteries and my fuse box. And I think
inverter, if you ever go back to the Bay Area.
I have a 300-watt inverter.
Okay.
So once I get the one that you gifted to me, I'll be able to upgrade a little bit. But as scared as I was of it, I'm really happy, that I know my system. Like I put every wire there. And mind you, I'm not like, I unfortunately didn't have a friend who knew a damn thing to help me. I just had to watch a lot of Will Pros and like wing it. Right. But I think if I'm able to get a newer van in the future, which, cross my fingers, I hope I'll be able to do one day. Like I would feel much more confident being able to put a system into that van. But like, at least with mine, like I've invested in a system that I'm probably going to use for a while. What sucks on your side, especially with Medusa van before you got Persephone, is obviously like you invested money into Medusa and ultimately there was just too much, going on there to for her to fit your lifestyle. And the thing is like somebody who, has a space and time to tinker on a different level from you might find a lot of value in Medusa that just didn't work for your situation. Which is go ahead.
I think Medusa would have been really good for like a weekend warrior, like great for going on weekend trips and stuff like that, but just not good for full time, for me at least.
And not consistent like traveling. Like if your full time is like being like parked on like BLM land for long stretches of time, your situation also might be different than if like it's like you want to be on the go more, right. Which I think is also the difference between like an RV and like a lot of like more compact vans, because RVs are really, yes, they can drive, but it's like if you have a large RV, you want to go somewhere and stop and like be there for a while, move to a new location, stop, be there for a while. Yeah. And I feel like you had a more on the go goal than that type of lifestyle.
Yeah. I mean, I've lived in a trailer. I mean, it was a big trailer. It was a 29-foot trailer, but like I've lived in a trailer and like moving that. Oh my God. When you move a trailer, I would spend days, like literally days trying to get my trailer straight, like level. Like, it would just be like, I'm never going to be level again. Like, yeah, it's definitely, I would not like, I love RVs, but they're different. So.
And you like lived on an RV in a site where you had like an address and stuff. So that, but like even people who travel, once you get to a certain size, you know that your frequency of movement is different. Like you don't, buy a fifth wheel to park in a different place every night.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting hearing about those two experiences. And that you did find value in the end with building your own van. I still don't know that I'm the greatest woodworker in the world. And the thing is, I thought solar would be more intimidating. And it's just like, I do not like my build skill.
I mean, like, there are so many problems with my van, like I have a plan to fix some of them, kind of relieve the house. Again, it's definitely like, okay, I can cover up this massive mistake by like, putting peel and stick tile in the kitchen, or something like that. So, yeah.
And, in a way, I think your van is cute. Like, I think it's adorable. But in a way, you almost have less amenities than you did in Medusa van on a very like basic level, if that makes any sense. But I still feel like it's overall such a better van,
Yeah. And some of the things that I'm going to do are to make it a little easier for, full-timing, even though I'm probably not going to be full-timing anytime soon. It will still be easier to do. And in particular, I'm trying to fix so that the toilet is accessible, like the portable toilet I have is accessible, because if I can do that, then I downloaded the app for Harvest Host and joined Harvest Host, which is like, it's like $90 a year, I think. And then you can stay at wineries and all these random like farms and museums across the country. There are like thousands and thousands of them, but you have to have a portable toilet and running water, some kind of running water. So if I can make that happen, I can stay at wineries, and then that's like free and awesome, beautiful place to stay. So that's the goal.
That's another picture that I stole off of Instagram. Like, how much have you upgraded the space since this picture?
I mean, I have like where the chair is sitting, I have now a little cabinet thing, thanks to you. And you gave me a great idea for that. And then, but what I'm going to do also is I'm going to replace the countertop and make it so that part of the countertop pops forward or backwards, I guess, towards the back of the van. And so that it can also be used as a desk. So I could have that chair there, and then it would be a desk. And then I'm also going to try and put peel and stick tile around the back so that it's not as hideous.
Your van is so cute. And you have a fridge, right?
Yeah, it's under the counter in the front there.
What kind of fridge do you have, and how it's working out for you? People always looking for recommendations.
Man, I cannot remember the brand, the fridge I have. It's like a DC fridge. It's probably middle of the road in terms of, it's not the nicest one, but it's not the cheapest one. It worked really well for me. It's been really great. It uses very little electricity, so I've never had a problem with power. And it's awesome to have it.
I love my fridge. Like, I'm converted. I used to be like, I don't need a fridge. I can live with just a cooler. It's fine. I'm hardcore. I get my fridge. I'm like, I love my fridge. I can have cereal in the morning.
I know. And like, even like things that are little, but like if I go to the grocery store and I'm like coming back home, I'm like, oh, I can put my ice cream in my fridge. Or like, and when I was house sitting in Florida and I went on a date and I was like, we got white wine, and I was like, oh, I have a fridge. We can put it in my fridge. And then we had cool white wine on our date, like at the park. So yeah.
And I think DC fridges have gotten so more accessible. I mean, honestly, I didn't pay that much for mine.
Yeah.
And it used to be like, you know, a cooler, even with the cost of ice. Like Dometic is pretty much one of the high ends where they're like super expensive. And it used to be, you know, a cooler with ice, you didn't have to pay like $1,000 for basically a tiny fridge. And now like DC fridges have gotten so much more accessible. There's so many more reviews on them because it used to be, well, what if I get this cheap fridge and then it like breaks down on me?
Right.
And there's so many more like reviews available for cheaper options that I think like having fridges for vans is becoming more accessible. I feel like the same thing happened with solar panels because, you know, like, you know, just as few as 5 years ago, like solar panels were really expensive. And 100-watt panels like have become so much more like accessible and less expensive, and the parts for them are becoming less expensive. We'll see what happens after COVID-19 because who knows your life is gonna.
I know. I mean, I will say that after the election, so in early 2017, I was looking hard at solar because I was really scared. Like I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen. I need to have some skill or some value if we go into the apocalypse, because I don't really have. I felt like at the time I was like, okay, I can teach you how to write a good speech, and that's it. That's the only skill I have. And so, and like in early 2017, I felt like it was even more expensive than they are now. So even just in the last
like in 2017, a lot of stuff that people use for vans was a lot more expensive. And yeah, I think things are just coming out that makes the entry point for some of the things that used to be like only accessible to people in the high end of van life are becoming much more accessible to people who aren't necessarily, you know, on the quote unquote high end of van life. And I think it's good. You know, I never thought I would have like a fridge in my minivan. Like I was really committed to I was going to live out of a cooler. And as I started doing research and just looking at it, and also I got sick of ice. Yeah. It was a whole lot of reasons that led to it. And it was like, I need to get there. But also knew I needed to have solar in order to bridge that gap. And there was no point in me getting the fridge without the solar first. And so I just took the steps and figured out how to get there. And it's like things like lithium batteries are really expensive. Yes, for the long term, they're probably the best choice. For the long term, they will come out cheaper due to their longevity, but that's not accessible to me. So what are the other options? And I've been really happy with my AGM batteries. And they're a very basic brand. Like, so yeah, that's all I have.
Yeah, and I went middle of the road with that too. I got gel batteries, so they're like kind of in between lithium and AGM.
So let's go ahead and shift to the latest news that hit the world. So you were, you know, doing your traveling thing, and so at what point did sort of the walls start to close in on this whole COVID-19 situation?
Well, I kind of had a unique situation I've been traveling, doing a lot of house sitting through trustedhousesitters.com. And I was planning so I was in Florida in January, like in December and January. I was in Hawaii before that doing a house sit all over the country. And then I was planning
to Hawaii. I know you did.
It was crazy. And so then I was planning to come back to the Philly area, do some house sitting. My mom lives here part-time and lives in Oregon part-time. So I was going to be able to stay in her home while she was in Oregon. So, you know, just kind of have a base for a little bit. And then I was going to go to Europe and travel around Europe for a couple months.
Yeah, that's not happening.
But when I was in Florida, I started having weird abdominal pain and came back to Philly to get it checked out to see what was up. And they discovered that I had a tumor on my liver. and decided that they couldn't tell if it was cancerous or benign, and they didn't want to risk it. Liver cancer is not really cancer you want to get. It's a pretty deadly cancer. And so they were like, let's take it out. So I had surgery to take out half my liver and my gallbladder on March 2nd. So that, when I went into surgery, it was clear to me that yes, COVID's coming here and is here, like in the country, in the US, but it wasn't fully like, it was the week when I was in the hospital is when it really became very clear that it was going to be a pandemic, and like in the US. And I actually have a very close friend who's like one of my oldest friends who's an epidemiologist. So when I was in the hospital after my surgery, I was looking at her Facebook posts, and she had this Facebook post that went viral, and it was about like, this is serious, and we are going to need to shut down the country, basically is what she said in this post. And so that was when I was still in the hospital, and I was in the hospital until March 7th. So that's, kind of, but I really wasn't paying attention too much, because I was like, well, I'm just going home and back to my mom's house and just going to lay around for the next 5 weeks until I can, go to Europe. Like I still was like, okay, great. I'll just postpone Europe for like a month or two. And when I recover from surgery, it'll be great. And I was thinking, because I mean, it was very major surgery. It's open surgery, so I was like, well, maybe I'll have to like cut it back a little bit, like only go for a month, and and then by the time I got out, I was like, oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to go to Europe anymore, because I was going to go to like Italy and Spain. Like, I mean, that was my goal.
Yeah, leaving the country right now is just
right.
Not.
And especially even then, it was very clear that I was not going to Italy.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, maybe I guess I could go to some Caribbean countries. Like I was like, I was just trying to like come.
You're still trying to travel. You were like, what's still available?
Well, because I'm on sabbatical and I've worked very hard to get here. Like I have saved money and saved time and worked in overload for many, many years. And I applied for the sabbatical, and they only get one for college per year. So like I was like, okay, it's okay. I can salvage, like major surgery aside, it's fine. I'll salvage this sabbatical. And then I don't even know, the dates kind of run together for me because I've been in self-isolation since March 2nd. But then when it became clear that we were going to have to self-isolate, even then I was like, okay, well, it'll be like a few weeks and I'll be fine. And it's fine because I have to be home anyway. So like, no big deal, And then it became very clear that that was not the case.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm sorry I'm sorry that you had to have major surgery. But I am glad it kept you from being trapped outside of the country at the wrong time.
Yeah, exactly. I would have been, that would have been bad. And also it was benign. So yay, I don't have cancer.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Things are good. But obviously having surgery your system was vulnerable before that point, but also like the fact that, you've had like a major surgery also was even more of a reason for you to be very self-protective as this situation got worse and worse. Mm-hmm. Cause for me, and I think I told you this before, like at first it was like, okay, we're not going to have rehearsals for 2 weeks. And then we're just going to like rearrange things and make it work. And before that 2 weeks was up, it was like, okay, we're not going to do anything for a month. And then before like it took like within a week maybe. And again, I've lost track of dates and how fast things were changing. And I think within a week it was, here's facts.
Oh,
We don't know what the heck's gonna happen. We're gonna it was, but it was basically the sense of the email was, we don't know what heck's gonna happen. You know, anybody on contract, their contracts were canceled. There was some residual pay, thank goodness, that was taken into account, but it was not for the full contract. And even though they told a lot of people on contract that they were eligible for unemployment, because there were people who hadn't started their contract yet. Their shows were coming up and they were going to come on contract. In fact, there was somebody whose contract I was balancing out, because the idea is that we would overlap for a certain point. I was doing the job that person was going to do until they got there. And then basically we were going to trade off and they were going to take over for the run. And that person never got there. And then they started losing their work in New York. And so they never came on contract. And while they were told they were eligible for unemployment because like their employment is non-standard, they haven't worked for the same employer. Right. It's really difficult. And it's not that these people won't get money eventually, but it's a lot of making phone calls because the website is set up for people who, you know, have been at the same job for long periods of time. And even they are waiting. Like even people in that situation are waiting, but the people who are like, okay, my situation is weird and I need to like talk to a human are having a lot of trouble getting through.
I have friends that are dog walkers that are basically self-employed, and same thing. It's like, how do you negotiate that, you know? And a lot of them are actually choosing to do walks as long as they can because they're like, I can't. I have no money, you know?
Yeah, I know somebody who just, they got a job at Safeway because it was like, Safeway is absolutely desperate, you know, grocery store workers.
Put yourself at risk. You know, but I definitely.
But he was like on it, and honestly, like, he's unfortunate, you know, yes, he's exposing himself, but he probably like was able to like keep income better than people who are still fighting with unemployment, not knowing if it's ever going to come through, or, you know, it may come through months from now when they're actually able to go through this mess. I got lucky. It was a whole timing thing with what happened with me. So I'm not getting much, but I'm grateful that I have it. And all I have to do is report every week. and you know, and try to pick up my pennies from YouTube, y'all. You're more important these days. Your views are so much more valuable these days than they were.
Tell your friends.
Share, like and
like and share, please. No, I mean, it's definitely, I am super grateful for that, the income that I have, you know, but it's definitely like, you know, for people like you and me who don't have showers in our vans, you know, it is definitely this huge, I mean, I'm very grateful that I have this house that I can stay in, you know, and actually this is probably the first time I've ever said this in my entire freaking life, but I'm in the suburbs, and like kind of far suburbs outside of Philadelphia. And I am so grateful I'm in the suburbs right now because I'm like, oh, I have like places I can walk, and I, you know, don't really pass very many people, you know, and everyone's pretty respectful of distancing around here. But if you live in the city, you know, it's a lot harder. My sister is outside of New York City, and it's very, very hard to be there right now because you can't really even go out and walk. And it's like, you know, but but like for people like you and me, we don't have showers. And, you know, like for long term, I was planning to, you know, I can use the gym or I can use trusted house sitters. Well, no one's traveling right now, so there's no way to house sit right now. And it's like, how are you supposed to live full time if you don't have like one of those fancy, you know, vans with a shower and everything?
Yeah. Well, you go out in the middle of nowhere and you set up a shower bath.
I know, yeah.
Or you sponge bath in the van.
Right. And that, I mean, you could do that like in this situation where, you know, if you're not at work, but like say in, you know, August when I go back to work, if the gyms aren't open yet, I can't go back to work and not shower, you know, like, I mean, they look down on that system.
I've definitely said like a lot of the resources, and mind you, it won't matter in June. I have to go move back into my van in the May, actually. But the resources that made things a little bit easier are cut off. And I'm like, even if you're in the middle of nowhere, eventually you have to buy stuff. And depending on the size of your vehicle, like you have to sleep in the vehicle, you have to live in the vehicle. You can only stock up, you know, your van with as much as it can carry while not impeding your ability to live in it. So even if you're going to go like way off grid, there's still a limitation on supplies based on your situation. You know, even if you have a shower in your rig, that shower is based on accessibility to water because the campgrounds are closed. So you can't get a campsite with like full hookups because a lot of those places are, you know, closed, or if they're open, it's probably like the people who are there need to stay self-isolated.
Right. Yeah. I am in all these like, you know, van life groups on Facebook. And I stopped logging into Facebook now for a while because I'm like, it was making me very angry. And so it was too much. So I was like, I gotta just step away. Instagram's lovely because it's just pictures. And I'm like, I'll see your pretty pictures. But, you know, one of the things that was really making me angry was that a lot of people were like, oh, you know, school's closed or school's online now, or my job can't closed. So I have 6 weeks to travel. What a great opportunity. Now I'm going to travel in my van. And, you know, I respect that that's like, you know, I'm very lucky to have that in my schedule already. I have breaks that I can travel, you know, if I have the money. The thing about that I think people don't realize, besides the whole contamination thing, like where you're putting other people at risk, like people who are on dialysis or people who have received organs and are, you know, on immunosuppressants, or people who are older, you're putting those people at risk as you travel. But more importantly, you are going to, if you go to BLM land, that's in a rural, you know, area. Like BLM land isn't in San Francisco, you know, it's not like in a city or even a small town, you know, like, I mean, it's a rural area where there's not a lot of medical infrastructure. And so if you do get sick, even if you get sick with something else, like that you have to go to the hospital, you are taxing that very already taxed medical industry. You know, and so I just think that people need to think about the fact that like their presence in a small town is taking up resources that it is, you know, small towns aren't made to then also have resources for other people. So they're taking the grocery store, you know, they're taking the, and especially the medical, you know, needs right now. I'm like, stay home. You know,
it's your option. Like, because I think there's some people like that is their only option. Like, they need to go, you know, especially if they've been like an urban van dweller. The smartest thing you can do as an urban van dweller is figure out how to go. If that's your only option, figure out how to get out on public land. And that person, it's a smart decision because it's the best way for them to self-isolate.
Right.
As opposed to trying to like stay as a parked car. So for the people who need it, and that's another reason why I'm like, yes, in theory, I could pack everything in the van, and go find some land, and like, you know, especially in Oregon, like I have much more access to it at this point than I do, but it's like, I have a place I can isolate until May, and we'll have a much better picture of this at the end of May.
Right.
we have right now.
Yeah.
And so, and I'll also have a picture of how likely my other job is to start up at some point. It probably won't. Like, at first I was like, okay, by June, maybe they will go ahead. But now, like, as the situation has increased, again, I don't know how smart it is for theaters to even start planning shows. And that's for people on stage and off stage. Because besides just the interactions actors have on stage, backstage where a lot of times are packed in like sardines, like people are on top of each other. Sometimes there's a weird entrance where like a stage manager is standing there with a door and literally like the actor's body is like right here. Like, there's all kinds of like weird stuff like backstage and the audience. And so like I don't know how smart and what steps are going to be required for theaters to even figure out how they start to function again.
Right.
Like film can't figure it out and they can trick the audience, you know? So theater
until there's a vaccine or widespread testing at least. Yeah. But right. And I mean, I just want to go back to what you're saying. Like if I was speaking about the people who have homes, like, I'm like, I would never say, I mean, and you let that space be for people who literally are full-time and don't have another option.
You know, it's like, this is not the time to be like fun traveling if you have another option.
I can't imagine trying to travel right now anyway. Like, it doesn't seem like it would be very fun because there's nothing open. Like, you can't do anything, you know, other than, I mean, I guess you can hike, but.
I mean, I'm sure there's like places you can go and it's like, it's fun to be parked there.
Right.
Because it's pretty.
Right.
You know, if you're used to living in some boring, like lame town, and now it's like, oh, I could actually go out in the middle of nowhere, and also know I have no obligations that are requiring me to be back. But at the same time, there's the best thing that we're doing to just get numbers down for the hospitals is just staying as safe and cut off as possible as we can be. And just the act of getting from point A to point B to suddenly being a new body, interacting with new resources in a new area, like all that stuff can become very, very complicated when we're dealing with something that passes the way this does. I don't want to get
asymptomatic, or someone else could be asymptomatic. You get it, you know.
And I don't get COVID-19 ding, so I'm staying on a very like safe. I don't want to get medical advice.
I mean, I have a couple of friends who have had it, and one of them, the last time I checked, I have to check in with them again, had a fever for 23 days straight.
Ugh.
So, like, also, you're not going to want to drive him home with a fever, you know, and that fatigue that just kills you. You know,
and a lot of van dwellers on like the poorer end, straight up, a lot of them honestly don't have medical coverage. And it's been like, I'm just gonna go gamble in the world. I mean, I don't have it right now. I'm trying to like make some corrective action to that situation, but it's like I also like, on a very base economic level, cannot afford to end up, you know.
I mean, I was just looking at my medical bills that through my awesome insurance that, you know, I am so grateful for. And believe me, you do not want to be in the hospital for 5 days because it was like, I think I added it up. It was over $250,000. You know,
something else, like even for something else, because like for people who do need medical care unrelated to COVID-19, they are handling things very differently right now. Even the most general needs, like you're pregnant and you need to go to the doctor's office, like your partner can't go with you, so you can't have that support system there right now. They have to be like so aware of keeping sanitary while interacting with something that's a general part. It's not even a sad part of going to the hospital, but the way it's changed into the stressful situation for everybody that needs to interact with people in the medical field is a big deal.
Yeah, very much. I mean, when I've gone for my checkups, it's been, there's many, many checkpoints. You can't even go to the ER just on your own anymore. And like getting into the hospital for my appointment, it's like there's checkpoints and they take your temperature and they, ask you all the questions like, have you had a fever in the last month? Have you traveled outside the US? I mean, every 4 times. It's like, I'm like, no, I've still only been here in my house, but I appreciate it. And
it's like, even if you twist your, even if you I don't know, I'm trying to think of a simple injury. Not that injuries are simple, but let's say, and you don't know if you twisted your ankle or broke your foot or what's going on, but you didn't quite walk right. You're you decided to go hiking and you fell.
Yeah.
Even just that simple, getting you to a paramedic, involving that paramedic in an injury, getting you to a hospital, even through all of that, unrelated to COVID-19 in that particular situation, they now have to take all these extra steps to make sure they're not bringing in a person who, in addition to falling and breaking a limb or whatever, also isn't bringing this, dangerous, contagion into the environment, even down to just bringing you in, putting you in a bed. If other people are in that room, how many people interact with the room of this person? So there's just a lot more concerns that don't make just going out for adventurous persons as appealing to me personally. So on that note, I have a question I've been kind of asking everybody, and it's on the other side of this, as we start to try to renormalize society, which obviously won't, it's not a light switch. We're not going to be oh, okay, now we're just back to how we were before. It's going to be stages. But as we approach those stages and businesses start to open and we try to renormalize, how do you see the interest in van life on the other side of this? Do you see people, more interested, less interested, as far as where we were before this really got serious, and the other side of this? Is it going to be people afraid to go out because they're still afraid of the contagion? Or is it going to be oh my God, we're finally free, and everybody wants to be a free spirit again?
I mean, I think there's different people, different perspectives. I think that for me, I have decided that this, and I was a little on the fence. I was like, okay, I'm going to do full-time van life when I go back. I can do it, 3 years and I'll be debt free. I'm not doing that anymore. For a few reasons. We still don't know if my school is going to be online in the fall. And, for me, I'm there's no way I can do full time. If the gym's not open, if cafes aren't open, there's not, house sitting opportunities occasionally, just knowing my personality, I'm more power to you if you can do that and that works for you, but just, I know my personality and that's what I need to make that work. And so I went back and redid my budget, and I'm going to have debt for a lot longer than I did, so that I can get a small apartment, because I feel that is what makes me emotionally, psychologically, and physically feel safest. That said, I do think that the one thing about this COVID situation and the sheltering in place that has made one thing very clear to people is that a lot of jobs can be done online that have not been done online before. And so I think that a lot of companies where managers are oh, no, you couldn't do that online. And even in education, right? So my sabbatical project is on online communication courses. And so this is my very topic that I've been studying. And a lot of instructors and administrators are very, naysaying about it, oh, it's really hurting our community. It's changing the culture of our college. It shouldn't happen. We need to be face to face. And while that is true, and for some reasons, and I think that there's a benefit to having face-to-face life, right? Like we can't just always be homes forever.
My major, there's certain, and you also went through this. There's majors.
But I have friends that are teaching performance studies online right now. I have friends that are teaching studio art classes online right now.
Yeah.
You know, and they're making it work. So I do see that. I don't think that 100% life should now be online.
Yeah.
But, I do think that this has shown us that more can be online and effectively, actually. So, you know, for example, I'm so lonely and bored that I was like, oh, we're having meetings? Can I come? And I actually attended meetings through Zoom because I was like so freaking bored. And I just was like, I just need something to occupy my brain. And they were actually better. These meetings that we have twice a semester, they were so much more efficient online, and they were so much more effective online than they are face-to-face, you know? And it was like, well, okay, we can actually accomplish a lot more online sometimes. And so I think that some people and some industries may see a shift to more online work, which would give people more flexibility with their, you know, travel schedule. And so they might be able to do van life more effectively, you know, especially once a vaccine is found. So, you know,
we're
not all in danger of dying.
So. In my glasses, I'm like, there's times where I can see it, and I like need my glasses. I know some people they're YouTubers, but they won't wear their glasses. But I'm like, I can't see. Like, I suck. And so, like, I'm like, can I get rid of the reflection?
Yeah.
To a certain extent, I live with it because I'd rather be able to see and somebody like be like, hey, can see the reflection glasses. And I do agree with you. I think a lot of companies are going to discover there's no reason for them to have the overhead of a structure for jobs that don't need the overhead of that structure, because buildings cost money to run. You know, it's a building, so it's either owned or rented. And it's going to have like water systems and electricity and all these things that they could reduce. Even if they gave everybody a computer, it costs less than running a building.
Yeah.
You know, even if the computers are provided by the company.
And people actually, statistically, people are more productive when they work from home. Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of people are freaking out about working from home right now. Like, they're like, you know, and I just keep telling my friends, I'm like, okay, this is what you do. Get up, shower, get dressed, don't sit on your couch, you know, like go to your desk or your table. Because, like, I mean, I work from home primarily, and I every single day get up, I work out, I shower, I get dressed, I make my bed. Like, I mean, I still do the same things that I would if I go to, you know.
And I think also it's a personality thing. Like, I tried to take online classes in college, and I was crap at them. I'm going to be honest. Like, I found that I'm a person who functions a lot better in a classroom. That being said, I also got a job where all the training was online, but it was under a shorter period of time. And it was because of, I was doing, so I don't know how many people on my YouTube channel know, I used to do insurance surveys. And I liked it because it was a work from home position. I could somewhat control the hours, and it allowed me to keep pursuing theater. Yeah. And people thought I had been like specially trained. I literally took like a 6-week course online. And you just had to have like a car and like your own camera and a smartphone. Like, it was like really low qualifications for this job. It also wasn't great pay. It was good enough for what I needed at the time. I forget what my point was. Oh, so that in that structure where it worked out fine. Like, I learned everything I needed, because you had to take a quiz and prove like you learned the crap.
I know. I think I would really struggle taking online classes. I would be able to succeed because I'm good at the system, like education. The system makes sense to me. I can game that system. like I always have. That's why I'm a successful professor. But but I don't think I would actually learn as much in that environment. You know, like my skill as a academic is knowing how little work I have to do in order to succeed. And it's a weird skill that you have to have that makes you a much better grad student.
Yeah.
But
for
that reason, I would learn less, I think, you know, if I took it online, because I didn't have the motivation to like actually, you know, learn everything. But I mean, I also have students that are like, you know, have major anxiety disorders and they cannot come to campus because we're a lot of students who I see it a lot with my trans students, that they face so much bullying coming to campus, even in Berkeley. And so there's racism there too. That's
not liberated Berkeley.
And so, but they, you know, face bullying. So taking online classes reduces. So,
and I definitely see like, sorry, it was a weird sound. Value in us assessing where it works for certain people and sort of seeing those avenues open up more. Because I do find like as an adult, I am a lot of self-discipline, and a lot of when I did the insurance job, basically I had to go out, I had to take photos of the house, I had to take measurements of the house, and then the work from home portion, I mean, all of it was kind of work from home because you never went into an office, was preparing these reports. And on the days where I did reports, and what I tried to do is like have my go out day where I did all the things I had to do in the field, and then I had a day at home where I wrote up the reports. And on that day, it was like, it was a work day. I actually scheduled it in my calendar.
Right.
You know, I got up at a certain time. I did my morning stuff. And then I sat at the computer. I did the reports. I learned this over the time of doing the job. I would schedule myself a break because, like, actually, again, going back to that, people working actually are more in danger, I think, of working too much from home than they are in the office. And almost because people feel guilty because they're home. And they haven't made that transition to a space. But really, like, what I learned over that time is like a lot of like working from home. And even as a stage manager, there's a lot I have to do outside of the rehearsal room as far as like writing reports. And it's like, okay, this is the structure. This is the space where work is happening. Now work is over. And you almost have to like create those spaces in your brain.
Right.
And physical spaces too, as much as possible. Obviously in a van, like I do everything from the van, you know?
Yeah. So I know, that's not the part that I don't know if I would be able to deal with, but yeah. I mean, but I do think that like it could potentially create more, like, I wouldn't say full-time van life, but like more of the opportunity for part-time van life, for sure.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. We are so far from that question. We just started talking about
online teaching, you know.
and I don't think that's really come up about how much for the people who still have jobs and are able to do their jobs from home, even if they don't travel in a van, like even if they're traveling period and they're going to hotels or something. If you work from home, literally, if you can take your laptop there and set it up and plug it in and have an internet connection, you know, even if that's, you know, at a hotel or wherever, it does open up the possibility for travel for more people who have those positions. Unfortunately, there are also some people who are going to find out like how unessential their job is. And unfortunately, their job won't exist on the other side of this. So I've also heard like another reason people might be considering it is for the financial reason of I need to reduce my costs of living, especially as gyms start to open back up, and which I think they will in some limited capacity. There probably will just be a lot of changes. How much will people need those systems just to survive? Because now their job wasn't one of the ones that came back. Because like I know a lot of companies are furloughing, which technically isn't fired and isn't laid off. But if they have to reassess their financial structure after this, even those furloughed employees, it's the option to bring you back. It's not, we will bring you back, unfortunately. So I think like that's one of the unfortunate parts of it. In the financial realm. Even me, I'm starting to be like, what else can I learn?
No, I mean, it's really, I mean, I think eventually I need to still believe eventually there will be a vaccine, and hopefully that will be sooner rather than later. I know that according to my friend Malia Jones, who is I'm sure you can find on the internet right now because she's an epidemiologist, and she's even been on Dr. Phil recently around this. She said like it's, science is moving so much faster right now than it has ever before. And so I'm hoping that soon-ish there will be a vaccine. And, once there's a vaccine, I think that we will see life go back to relatively normal. But I do think that so many companies and businesses will just be killed by this.
Yeah.
And,
or just be changed in such a way that they'll have to restructure. And that doesn't mean they won't eventually get back to the point where they have the same amount of employees, but unfortunately also during that eventually there will be unemployed people who will be questioning if they should be shifting or changing fields. I don't think we talked about this like in here officially, but one thing you were talking about was people tend to go back to school after this because it's like, oh, look how quickly I didn't have a job when this thing hit. And then really thinking about, especially people with families, with children, with people they have to take care of. One of the disadvantages of being like single right now and also like not really with any like traditional family structure is like I'm really isolated right now. But also whatever financial negatives are impacting me, I just have to worry about me. I don't have to worry about if I'm going to be able to feed a kid, if I'm going to be able to support a partner who may be in a more compromised position than me. And so it's like, it's the good and the bad of the situation.
I wouldn't want to be self-isolating with kids right now, honestly. But I mean, I'm not into kids, but they're not my thing. But I agree as someone, I mean, I do have a family, and actually a lot of them live right near me right now, but it doesn't matter. I can't see them. Like, I'm just like talking to them on the phone, And
I do have like family members who are reaching out and being like, I was actually surprised because I tend to think of myself as forgotten sometimes.
It's just weird. Like, I've talked to my dad more in the last 6 weeks than I have in my entire life combined. I'm like, he calls me like every other day right now, and I'm like, there's nothing even happening. Why are we talking every single day? But it's been nice actually, because I'm like so bored and alone. I'm like, yes, please. I will talk to anybody who calls me.
Yeah, like I'm more receptive to like because I like never used video calling. I've honestly,
you're not a big texter.
Once, but I think I've never used FaceTime, but also I don't really own Apple products, so.
Well, you hate texting too. I know you're like anti-texting.
Well, no, I'd rather talk, but also like it's like I'm in a talking moment, and then it's like I'm just in a I don't want to be bothered moment.
Yeah.
So I have a lot to say, or I have nothing.
I know. It's kind of funny. I've been like, yeah, it's very weird to be single right now during this. It's definitely like the COVID dates are bizarre.
How many people you think are sneaking out to
Well, I mean, yeah. Well, I will say that I'm on like every single dating app there is, and they all have like, you can date virtually, like these little messages like reminding you, please don't meet anybody actually physically. And I've been finding the online dating very bizarre, because it's like I'll like match with people and then like not hear from them, and I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you not messaging me? Because like you're just sitting around and doing nothing. Why can't we at least like have like little Zoom dates or whatever? It's very bizarre. And so I think that, yeah, it's like, it's a weird time to be alone. It's a weird thing to experience alone, I think.
Well, I gave up dating apps a long time ago because girls don't like me. No, let me stop. P.S. YouTube audience.
Right. P.S. Where did we meet? Dawn and I met on Tinder.
Yeah, we totally met on Tinder. Hey, we're still friends. That's all.
Exactly. That's the key.
So yeah.
I digress.
Getting off that subject. So you already talked about the fact that you're planning to go back to apartment life, which was one of the things I wrote down. So we kind of already talked about that. Just looking over my list of things. I don't think I asked you this. So as far as like, let's just swing back to happier topics that aren't pandemic related.
Dating.
Looking back on your van build, let's bring this back to van life. Like, what was the hardest part of your build, and is it the part that you thought was going to be the hardest?
I think the hardest part was, so I chose to use 1/8" ply for the walls, like the Luan or whatever. And ceiling, and that was the hardest, like cutting that. I am not, like, geometry was like my very least worst subject ever in school, and so I don't like, I proved that in my build. Like it's very messed up. So that was the hardest part, and also that I was alone, so I was trying to like put it up the ceiling. I'm like, okay, I have like 1 foot, and then I have the hand of this, and like trying to like levitate it up there. So that was the hardest part. But I mean, it really was just about, I think like pretty much everything took me 2 tries. So I would completely fail the first attempt, and then the second time I tried it, I would get it. So like literally everything. It was like, oh, that didn't work. Okay, let me figure it out. So it's just, it's very humbling to try and build a van, because you're like,
when I was talking to Novel Culture, because there are a couple, so there's 2 of them, I was saying like some of the hardest things have been like not the project itself, but the fact that the project needed 2 people, even if it's just as dumb as I need you to hold this so that I'm able. And yeah, it's the weird like body thing. You need to like hold something or balance something, and just one more body would make it easier, and you just don't have access to that person. And also we were talking about, even with them being 2, about building on the road, which is completely possible, and people preach it like it's so easy, and it is completely possible. Right. But you are limited to how long the sun's up when you got to sleep in that van that night.
Right, or you can like finding space. I know a lot of people use Home Depot parking lots and stuff like that. Like once you have electricity in your van, you can do that. But I found that really challenging, to find space. And, even now, like I still have things to do on it. And, I'm going to try and use my brother's driveway, but it's like where I'm staying, there's no driveway or anything. So it's like, I can't really like do it on the street, and I think that's really hard. Also, I can imagine that, well, actually the limited amount of building that I've done over the last year with other people, so I've had friends and lovers or whatever try and help me with build pieces or fixing.
And just take over your shoulder and mess it up.
Well, like straight up taking a tool out of my hand while I'm doing something.
Move it on.
Stab you in the face if you do that. Sorry. I am a competent person. Don't do that. But like just having a different of opinions of like how one should do it, and I've had people who are really cool about it and been like, I'm going to let you tell me what to do, because it's your build or whatever. And even that though, like the processing about like which way should we do it, I can imagine that couple, the amount of fights they got in were probably, a great test of their relationship.
No, I think it was a very good, I'm here to like help you. I think they were very much in that, you know what we're doing. I'm just here to like hold it when you tell. So I think they were very much in that situation,
Right.
Which I think, and I wasn't there. I'm sure like there were times where it depends on, I think, the personalities involved, because some people are like, you know what? I get the general idea. I'm just here to hold it and like do whatever you tell me to do and take instruction.
Right.
And if you get two people who aren't who are both very like aggressive minded, I think like it can lead to
what
more.
you're talking about, Dawn. I'm not at all a strong leader and really stubborn.
Not to take it down that road again, but I was joking with somebody the other day who is a friend that I had a crush on. It's okay, it's all out in the air, but I was joking. I was like, we were just generally talking about like life, and I was like, and I'm attracted to aggressive and then I stopped and I looked at her and I was like, darn you.
Aggressive femmes.
Very aggressive like personality.
Crappy femmes.
Yeah. Not always femmes. I can be attracted to butches.
Oh, okay.
So like it's just aggressive personalities, to be quite honest.
Right.
They aren't always attracted back to me, but
Oh, well.
dang it, how we get on this subject again. But like, I was actually in the Home Depot parking lot speaking to people piping in, and this was in one of my videos. And I was using a jigsaw for the first time. Didn't know what the heck I was doing. I never used one. So I was like guessing my way through it. And this guy came and he started asking me questions. Really nice, like older white guy. I didn't have a problem with it, like in that particular situation, because I was like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I've never used a jigsaw before. But it was a valuable purchase. I'm glad I finally bought one. And I have like rechargeable batteries. So like I charge my batteries continuously, and then I have like 4 batteries I can switch out on most of my tools. But in the video, people were like, somebody like reacted badly to this guy like coming up and like giving me instruction, but it didn't personally bother me in that moment, because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, tell me what to do. I didn't say that out loud, but in my personal brain. But I saw there were other people in the comments who thought like, where me and my personality set, I didn't take it as an overstep. Now I do think once people start treating me like I'm stupid and I know what I'm talking about, that's when I can snap. And so like that's sort of what it is like with me.
I think also there's different ways to go about it. When I was building my Persephone, the van I have now, there was a lot of like the maintenance guys were all like hung out around where I was doing it, and they would come over and just were super genuinely interested in what I was doing. And at one point, putting that vent in, that was the hardest thing I did. That was terrifying. And I only had like a 20-minute window because it was about to rain, and I was like, okay, go. And like I had watched the instructions 18 times. I was like, okay, I'm very clear on step by step how to do this. I cut the hole like 1/8 of an inch too small.
Oh no.
And I was like, oh no. And then
Oh,
like with the jigsaw, you can't really like cut an eighth of an inch off. And I was like, oh God. And like that was the only time someone else did something for me on that van, because this guy, one of the maintenance guys, was like, do you have a grinder? And I was like, no. And he's like, I do. And he like jumped up there and like ground out, you know, the eighth of an inch, and it was like popped it in, screwed it in, and it started to rain. And I was like, oh, thank God for him, you know. But so that situation, it was like he was treating me like I was competent.
Yes.
But I've had situations where I've been at like AutoZone, you know, like fixing one time my rear lights went out, the turn signal, you know, because my N80 40 Econoline, and it was like all melted, like it was completely melted in there. So I had to replace the socket, which is really easy. You just like, you know, fuse to, you know, 3 wires. It's super easy to do, like no problem. But I didn't know what colors went with what colors, you know, because there were different colors. And I was like, sitting there, and this dude comes over and he's like, hey, little lady, you know, do you need any help? And I was like, yeah, do you know what colors go? What are the matching colors? And he was like, I don't know. And I was like, okay, no problem. I'll look on my phone. And then he just like walks away. And I was like, you know, don't treat me like I'm stupid. You know.
Lady, let me help you. I know about cars.
I mean, yeah, that was in the South. So it was a little like that. But yeah, I think that oftentimes it can just be curiosity that, and people don't know how to communicate curiosity without, you know, kind of taking you down or taking over.
It's definitely the right two personalities meshing for it to work, because 2 people working together can either like be a blessing or a disaster if their communications are just off. You know, so that's the way it is. But yeah, there's just times where I was like, I wish there were like 2 more hands in an independent body to like operate them.
Just the process, like I'm a big processor, so like even when I was writing like my dissertation, I would call a friend and just talk for like an hour and a half. I'd be like, and then I think my argument should be this, and she'd be like, oh, and I'd be like, oh wait, no, and then like, you know, we're like. And so with processing how to build something, you know, I just need to talk it out, you know, like, and then I'll come to the answer, you know, so someone to like, just be like, you know, I don't know what to do, and just talk it out.
Yeah, there was some work I did on my van while I was house sitting, and my friend Emily came over, and that was honestly just a really fun day, because we worked on the van. She knew she had used a saw before. She made fun of me because I didn't know the name of the type of saw. To be fair, her dad's in construction.
Right, exactly.
Going around these terms. But yeah, it was a lot of, all right, this is what I think I want to do. I think I can do it this way.
Right.
What are your
sometimes you just need to mess up to be like, oh, that's not possible.
Yeah. Oh, I'm totally like, I'm gonna have to like redo my bed. Like that's one of the things I want to get done before I'm permanently back in the van. I'm planning on redoing my van. So I'm gonna go ahead and go with a wrap-up question. Okay. We already got one of my first wrap-up questions, which is like, what do you think it's gonna look like on the other side of this? But as far as like you personally, what do you see as your future with Persephone Van? Like,
so I mean, the plan I think is to get an apartment, and then I'm just gonna try to use her to travel on summer break or other breaks, you know, as much as possible. I could take her up north, you know, for a weekend and things like that. So, you know, I'm gonna keep her. I love her. I also would not want to be trying to sell anything right now because no one has any money. So, you know, I think that I'm gonna keep her and travel as much as possible during the summers with her, you know, still take her to women's festivals and things like that when that comes back. And I think it'll actually be a really great vehicle to have for that purpose in the future.
Yeah.
It's just not going to be full time.
And it's a relatively like new vehicle, so even for like just needing something to drive, it's not like it's on the end of its legs or anything.
Yeah, and I mean, really, when I lived in Sticks and Bricks right before June, I barely ever drove, and I mean, I think I put maybe 50 miles a month onto my vehicle at the time. So it's like, I'll just probably park her and, use her for groceries and, weekends, adventures.
Yeah. Oh, and I just remember when I always ask, if you had to give one piece of advice to somebody who's considering moving into a van or doing van life, whatever that statement means to you, what piece of advice would you give to that person?
I would say, and something that I wish I had have done is if you have the money to, like, if it's not something that you're being forced into, like on a moment's notice, if you could rent a van first, there's a lot of van rental places out there. I think that renting a van and going for like a weekend or even maybe a week or two on the type of adventures you think you're going to have most commonly. So if that's urban stealth camping, or if that's, BLM land or hiking or whatever, do that, because I think that it would have been really helpful to know this is the kind of van I need for this, experience, before getting my first van that wasn't really set up for what I needed.
So. That's a good one. That's a really good one. People have been coming up with some good stuff. I never know which way they're going to go with the advice. So, and I think that's a really excellent one because, like, getting, a 50-seat school bus to convert isn't smart if you want to be a stealth camper in the city.
Right.
And if you want to be on BLM land for 2 weeks, maybe going bigger is more okay than it would be if you're using it also as a daily driver or for any type of like stealth camping.
And I think, I think there's, especially with van life and the YouTube and Instagram van life, which is not really what it's like, honestly, at least in my experience. There's so much like cred given to like a certain type of van life, like either you're the hiking kind of van life or you're the urban stealth van life, and that is the only way to do van life. And in reality, like, I've had to go through a lot of like feelings of shame that I'm not gonna be full-time after this, and really feeling like, well, I really wanted to be, and I felt like it was a sense of pride to be full-time and everything. And people make comments, or you're not really doing van life or whatever. And it's like, even if you do a weekend in a car, it can be van life, like it's all van life.
It's your way of doing it. And I think also that is a discovery. Going back to YouTube, obviously the way most of us, like the way you just figured out how to install your roof vent was watching a YouTube video, somebody who had done it, and that was the YouTube video you needed to complete that project. But that doesn't mean like the full picture of his van life is going to be your van life, and so like, and there's a lot you can't know, honestly, until you go through it, which is why your advice is so valuable. Like, how much do I need to survive in a van? Like, if I know I don't have a lot of money, I used to have a Zipcar account, and they had cargo vans. So even something, maybe you can't afford a camper, but maybe it's like, okay, I'm going to go rent a cargo van for a night. I'm going to throw a sleeping bag and a camp stove and basic stuff in there. And like, how does it feel to go through that for a night if I have to start really basic? And if you do, or have the money to go a little bit bigger, again, like rent a completely converted camper van. There's a few companies out there that do that now. And take that out,
Right.
and experience that if you have those, again, if you're not forced into it and being forced to adapt. But I think like you just learn so much actually doing it.
Yeah.
And that may include, I love doing this to travel. I don't want to do it for my day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And that is a valid choice.
Yeah.
Also, like, I'm a city camper because I need to do this while doing a job. I will travel occasionally, and I love that I have that access. Like, I would not have driven up to Canada for a day. I keep bringing this up if I didn't live in a van. You know, taking some time and going to RTR 2 RTRs ago was completely valuable. I'd never been to Arizona. That was great. Yeah. But like, my day-to-day life isn't on being on BLM land or like dispersed camping 90% of the time. It's being in the city 90% of the time. And like, at one point, I wanted that whole, you've done that picture where you open the back of your van and you're like somewhere, and I wanted that, and I wanted my bed built like that. Right. And living in my van, I realized I needed the garage space in a certain way. And so when I got to the point of having time to renovate, that garage space that I created in the back was more valuable than being able to open my back door.
Yeah. Shot.
One in a million Instagram shot that I don't even know about.
I mean, honestly, for me, like, I don't know very many, like, I know a few urban, you know, stylist van lifers, you and Meek, you know, but like, you know, hey, Meek. But I feel like for me, like, one of the things that I discovered in the first 2-3 weeks of my trip was that I was like, whoa, I'm a city girl. Like, and I know that, like, I love the city. I love restaurants. I love, you know, like, I love the city. Yeah. And that is a very different van life than most, you know, of the YouTube channels or the, you know, Instagram, you know, where they're like on the Grand Canyon and it's like, oh, you know, I mean, that's great. And I did that and it was like, wow, this is beautiful. And then I was like, this is fun, but like, I'm so lonely after 4 hours of sitting here by myself. You know, like,
where's the boardwalk? You know, like,
I'm like, where's the bar, man? There's no Tinder matches out here on the Grand Canyon Ridge. I don't know what's wrong. So, like, I mean, I really discovered that, like, doing house sits in cities is a way that I can do van life, you know, and also house sit, you know. So, like, I just want to be in cities.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of that, before I close this out, because I'm about to close this out, because we're hitting that time where I need to not make this too long for replay. What is the house sitting site you use? I'd never heard of that one before.
TrustedHouseSitters.com. And so it's like, I think it's $90 to join as a house sitter, and it's $130 a year for a homeowner. And it's basically, you get free house, dog, cat sits, you know, either way. So, you know, I've gone to Florida, I've gone to Hawaii, I've done it in Philly. And it's a really great way to, like, first of all, like, I get to cuddle a dog, which I like, love dogs and cats. And I love animals.
I have to own it.
Yeah, I love animals but I don't have the lifestyle anymore to own them, you know? And so I'm like, oh yeah, I get to cuddle a dog, you know, or a cat. And then, you know, I get to go all these awesome places, and, you know, I've met some really amazing people. You know, the homeowners, like the homeowner in Florida was like amazing. She's still a friend of mine. Like, you know, she's just a really amazing, supportive woman. And so, yeah, it's great for the house sitters. Like, you can do it internationally too. I've never done that, and then it's great for the homeowner because they get free pet care for, you know, unlimited pet care. So it can be really great.
So you don't get paid. You basically just get the house,
right?
Which is nice. I'm not downgrading that at all.
So it's a free place to stay. And the rules are that there can't be any roommates or housemates or anything like that. So it's literally like you get a free house to stay in, you know.
And how does the hiring, for lack of a better term, process work?
So they verify you, like, you go through a background check and they verify you, and then you have references. So I had different people that I'd pet sitted for, write me references. And then once you start getting reviews, like I have people reach out to me from San Francisco who are like, hey, I have this house that, can you do it? And I'm like, well, I'm in Philadelphia, sorry. But so it actually can be like you put in an application, and then it depends on the location, really how popular it is. I was really surprised that I got the one in Hawaii, but it was really that it was a good fit for what she was looking for. But so, it depends on the location, but it can be a great way to travel.
All right. Thank you for dropping that little nugget. That was something I hadn't heard of. So I wanted to ask a couple questions in case anybody else was interested and would find value in it. Thank you so much for everything. It's been a great chat. Please stay healthy. Take care of yourself. I hope we get to connect. Unfortunately, it'll probably be back in the Bay. That's not about connecting with you. That's about, it would have been nice if we could actually have, in vans.
On the road, yeah. Well, I'll still have my van. We'll go on a little.
But yeah, like, take care of yourself. I look forward to seeing you in person in the near future. And thank you again for coming on and chatting. Again, just a reminder to everyone, I'm going to have links to both of her videos. There's only two that I'm aware of. The one I did and the one from Galavan. Is that and your social media, are you okay with that being linked?
Yeah, I'm equal opportunity. I will let you follow me on Instagram. It's yay.cora. So
okay, and that'll be linked in the description, as listed in the description, whatever. It'll be there in the description as well. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.